now. There we go. Okay, again, I wanted to welcome everybody to the event this evening. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Today, we will be talking to three different panelists today on three different topics, but they complement each other quite nicely. Before we start, I wanted to thank Canada Life for sponsoring this event. Without partners like these companies and agencies, we would not be able to have different types of events like this. We really depend on these types of companies in order for our name to get out there, and also for our drive and for what we do to be able, so that other people can know and get to know what we do. Also, I'd like to do a little plug here. If you want to know more about what we as the Canadian Centre of Men and Families do for CAFE, what they do, you can go to www.menandfamilies.org/online programs. I will put it in the chat in a little bit. Furthermore, if you wanted to sign up for more webinars by CAFE, you can also register through these programs, and they will also be in the link in the chat below. The events are by Jeff Segarra. He's talking about recruiting men and early childhood educators, and I was on July 22nd. And then Douglas on his experiences on reporting men in Canada on August 20th. The format tonight will be as follows. I will do a short introduction of each panelist, and they will have 10 to 15 minutes to talk about their specific field. After, sorry I'm cutting out. Trying to get some close something.
Should we cut out our video as well, maybe, till we talk?
Yeah, if you wanted to for right now, and then I'll introduce you and you can turn it back on. So the webinar tonight will be as follows. We'll do a quick introduction of each panelist. We'll have about 10 to 15 minutes to talk about their specific field. And once this is done, we'll open the room up for some questions. If there are any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and I'll be able to speak. Or you can take your questions to the chat and I will read it to the panelists. If you do not spell your name out loud, make sure that you change your name to your panelist, or just tell me the question before you have the actual question and we don't want you to miss it. Further questions about specific experience should not be asked just because it's not the proper space to do that. If you have specific personal questions, then for example, operator Hannah and any other person. The final note is that all questions and statements should be kept to maximum of 45 seconds to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak. With three panelists tonight. The first one is Chuang. She is a PhD associate professor of family relations and applied nutrition at the University of Guelph. Ludmer is a prominent Toronto family lawyer. It's not the live stream on Facebook, see that helps. We'll go from there. You can just put it on Facebook later. Does it seem a little better?
Maybe the panelists can start speaking. Can you hear me okay? Is my sound all right? So maybe it's just where your location is, Nick. I think he's frozen now.
I mean, I think I was scheduled to be the first speaker.
Yeah, maybe you should.
Maybe I'll just take over. Can everyone hear me fine? Can you hear me, Susan, Brian? Can you put your thumbs up if you can?
You're fine.
Yeah. Okay, well, sorry, Nicholas. I hate to kind of take over some of your responsibilities, but I think I'm just going to go straight ahead. It's 12 minutes past 8 and we've been asked to speak for like 10 or 15 minutes. So my name is Rob Whitley. I am an associate professor of psychiatry at McGill University and a research scientist at the Douglas Research Center in Montreal. And I'm going to use my 10 minutes today to talk a bit about mental health issues affecting men who have been divorced or separated, outlining a bit of the problem and then talking about some potential self-help activities that men can engage in to keep their mental health well during this difficult time. So we do know that relationship breakdown and divorce and separation are risk factors for a range of mental health outcomes. So, for example, we know that divorce and separation raises the risk of suicide. It also raises the risk of substance misuse and can intensify substance use issues for people who already have those issues. It can also increase the risk of depression. A famous series of studies were done by a gentleman called Kupasoa in the United States, looking at longitudinal data. It's a difficult name to pronounce, so I'll write it in the text box afterwards. He found that men who were recently divorced had twice the rate of suicide than men who were married, and had 8 times the rate of suicide of women who were divorced, which implies that divorce is a very specific risk factor for men. And more intense than women. And there's a number of reasons why that's been, people have tried to understand that gender differential, which I'll go into shortly. But we do know relationship breakdown is a risk factor for a lot of mental health issues. Interestingly, we also know that if you become a widow, if you're a man who becomes a widow, that actually causes less mental health issues than divorce or separation. So we've done, epidemiologists have done studies where they've compared divorced men, separated men, widowed men, single men, and widowed men actually have better mental health than divorced or separation. So we know it's something specific about the process of divorce which can increase risk for mental health issues. And I'm going to go over some of these now. First off, we do know that approximately 70% of divorces are initiated by the wife or by the woman. What that means is that in the majority of cases for men, it might be a sudden and unexpected shock to have to go through a divorce. It might have been unforeseen. And therefore the man suddenly has to deploy his cognitive, his financial, his social resources to deal with a situation that was completely unexpected. The person who initiates the divorce often has had, one could say a plan B or an escape plan if the marriage was not very happy for that person for some time, and has saved money up for that, has contacted lawyers, has been thinking about what they're going to do, where they're going to live, and to be suddenly put into that situation can be very stressful. That's the first factor I wanted to talk about. The second factor is what we call social support. So social scientists can measure kind of social support quite precisely. How many close friends do you have? How many acquaintances? How much time do you spend with other people outside of your family unit? Who could you rely on in an emergency, etc. And what we do know from social science research is that when women get married, they tend to keep a larger network of social support individuals in their social support network than men do. So when men get married, they typically become what I call kind of homesteaders, that they put their energy into the family unit, into their children, into their wife, into DIY in the house, etc. Whereas many women obviously commit to that as well, but they still stay in touch with their sisters, their cousins, their extended family, their friends from school, etc. So what that means is that when a man and a woman get divorced, the safety net, the social, informal social safety net for women, and again, we're talking about statistical generalities here, always different for individuals, tends to be, the net tends to be thicker and wider than for men. So that means a woman who gets divorced typically will have more people around who can help. And a man will have less people because, especially if the marriage has gone on for some time, the friends that the person had before marriage may not be friends anymore. So we know that's a factor. Another factor we know is separation from children. So we do know that of contested family court decisions, men typically only get custody in kind of less than 20% of cases. Depending on the jurisdiction, it can go down to more like 1 in 10. And the studies I've done have shown that separation from children can be a kind of living bereavement for those men. It's almost like a bereavement. The same grief processes and the same sense of loss and the same sense of guilt. And obviously that can be crushing in terms of mental health factors. And women face other issues. Obviously, if they keep the children, it's tough being a single parent, so no one's denying that. But we do know that separation from children can be very, very tough for men. And we do know that the experience in family court in particular, Brian can talk about this better than me, can be very difficult for men. We think about the family court system as a justice system, that it's a place where the state dispenses justice in a blind fashion, and we think of the Old Bailey, Lady Justice holding the scales and the sword. But for many men, it's not a justice system, it's a legal system. It doesn't dispense justice, it just dispenses legal directives which have to be followed, but where the sense of justice for many men seems to be absent. And that can cause existential difficulties for men because, like I said, this legal system is part of the state. We believe that we pay taxes and we're citizens of the state, and we believe the state owes us something. And when it seems to fail in the delivery of that justice, it can lead to what Durkheim calls kind of social alienation, and estrangement from society and from wider structures of society. And a final factor I'd like to talk about, which we don't talk about a lot, is kind of stigma and shame. So obviously things have changed over the last decades, and the last figures I saw, about 35 to 40% of marriages will end in divorce in 20 years. So divorce is becoming a more common issue, but in many subcultures, in more like traditional subcultures, maybe immigrant subcultures, religious subcultures, divorce can still bring a lot of shame and stigma for men and women, but the men in particular might be considered by their family to have failed because men are typically seen as the head of household, and they should be taking a lead and keeping the family together. And somehow people will think they didn't satisfy the wife, and they're not doing their duty as a breadwinner. And we shouldn't underestimate this kind of stigma and shame. Sure, we all know many people here who have been divorced or getting divorced, and it's been kept secret, and it's only emerged after X amount of time, and the parents still don't know, etc. So these are the kind of risk factors, and I've only got a few minutes left. What I wanted to talk about now is some of the research that shows what can be helpful to men who have recently undergone a divorce, and especially separated fathers. And this is in no particular order, and it's just a kind of I'm summarizing some widespread literature from mental health and social science. Firstly is the importance of routine and structure. So when you're married and you have your children around, you often have the structure of getting up, taking the kids to school, going to work, coming back, preparing meals, cooking food, and the parents and on the parents who are in this Zoom call will know that sometimes is overwhelming, that structure, but it gives you a huge sense of purpose and meaning, and your day is shaped around that. And for separated fathers, we know on kind of Saturday and Sunday, when they'd usually be doing things with a family, there's maybe not things to do. Maybe they're of a kind of like my age, a certain age where you're too old to be going to bars and hanging out with younger people. But maybe you're too young to be going to like senior meetings, etc. And so you're in a bit of a grey zone. So I always say, try and find something that gives you kind of routine and structure, especially at the weekend and maybe in the evenings if you need that. In the research I've done, many men show a lot of innovation and imagination in terms of trying to find that routine and structure. One way many men do this successfully is through exercise. So, we know that exercise is good for everybody's physical health and mental health. It releases endorphins. It can give you a sense of achievement. In Canada, there's many ways we can exercise. We have many lakes you can swim in. You can go to the gym. You can bike. I don't need to tell people many ways that you can do exercise. You can go for a walk around the block. It doesn't mean you have to be a super fit athlete to be doing exercise. And the men I talk to say that can really help them, especially on a Saturday or a Sunday. They structure in some exercise in some part of the day. Another factor I'd like to talk about is kind of religion and spirituality. So I know this is sensitive and some people have had a negative experience as young people with religion and spirituality. But for other people, they were fond memories of youth, and there exists in our society whole networks of churches, synagogues, mosques, temples from different religions who are usually very keen to welcome kind of new members. They often have volunteer opportunities available for people. By definition, in some ways, a lot of religious activities happen at the weekend. Sunday is a holy day for Christians, and Friday, Saturday for Muslims and Jews. So I'm not preaching here, I'm not trying to convert anyone. I'm just saying, in the studies I do, the men who have tried to engage with kind of religious, spiritual programs, I've said that typically it's kind of help them find meaning, to find new friends, to fill in some of those social gaps. This brings a kind of wider issue of kind of social activity. So it's very important not to get isolated, not to get too much in your own head. Sometimes in psychology, we say, like, some people say distraction is a form of escapism and this is bad and you should face your demons or whatever. But actually, a lot of research shows that that's not the case. There's a researcher called Nolan Hoeksma who wrote some very good work about how avoiding rumination, engaging in distracting activities is actually really good for your mental health. It's not useful to be sitting around ruminating about coulda, woulda, shoulda. So definitely encourage people to get involved in kind of social activities that could be helpful. And for every individual, that's their own kind of idiosyncratic personal choice in a way. Some people would military veterans, they can join the Royal Canadian Legion. They're always looking for people to come and participate and help out. Some people like team sports, some people are more loners. We live in a bilingual country, so some people might want to join a French class, and there's lots of online communities, etc. So that's something we do know from the literature is helpful. The final thing I'd like to say, because I realize I'm almost up with my time, is the importance of setting goals and trying to reach those goals and trying to master some kind of new skill. And these goals don't have to be the kind of life goals that we all think about when we're teenagers. It doesn't mean going to get a degree. It doesn't mean buying a new car. Small goals, like this weekend, I plan to go and sit on a terrace and maybe chat to a stranger. Or I plan to go on a bicycle ride for 20 kilometers and stop in some nature and go for a swim. Setting these goals, short-term, medium, long-term, and then reaching those goals, we know from the theory of cognitive behavioral therapy, can be incredibly helpful for mental health. And the last thing related to that is we know that the mastery of a new skill can also be very helpful for mental health. It can fill time, it can give you a sense of kind of meaning and purpose. And we all know this from the COVID-19 lockdown. A lot of people have been mastering skills in terms of language, learning a new language. I know people who have learned how to play a new musical instrument, people who have been meaning to read novels all their life and they haven't had a chance, people who feel they've got a skill in writing, in art, in music, like I said. That's helped a lot of people during this lockdown. And we know from literature it's also helped a lot of people who have been going through a difficult divorce and separation. So I've gone slightly over my time. We said 10 to 15 minutes. I've gone 14 minutes. So I think that's all I wanted to say, and anyone who has any questions afterwards, I'll be available. And I don't know, Nicholas, if your sound is back, but otherwise, I guess I could probably just turn over to the next speaker and they could introduce himself. So
I think it's working. I stopped the live feed on Facebook. Hopefully that helps. And then I was kicked out of the Zoom room, so then Brian took over. So now I'm back. So yeah, so I'm not sure what was all said, but yeah, who's ever, I think
it was Susan next.
yeah, Susan's next.
Yeah.
So if Susan wanna go, then yeah. You're muted, Susan.
Again, hi everybody. I'm Sue. Feel free to give me an email. I put my email in the chat. I'm not a therapist or a counselor. I'm a researcher. My area of expertise is parenting, parent-child relationships, child development. Plus, I'm a really nosy person, so I love to talk to people, get into people's lives. And so if you want to have a chat on the side, that's not a problem. So I was told to have only 10 minutes to speak on child development, child outcomes in terms of divorce and separation. And so what I thought was, what would I say in 10 minutes? And I'm going to hit some key points, maybe pose some questions for you to think, because obviously everybody's situation is different. It's very, very complicated. Right now, I'm helping at least 5 or 6 fathers, going through divorce, going through various issues, false allegations, and so it's quite complicated. So in my 10 minutes, I thought to myself, what does it really mean to be in the best interest of the child? You hear this cliche, best interest of the child, best interest in the child, but what does that really mean? And for me, it means their mental health. If a child says to you, I am not happy, read the signs, get the message. There's something going on. And so go and seek out help. And a lot of times there's depression, which usually goes with anxiety, and it is very crippling. I've taught at least 11,000 students at the university by now. And I've had students who've come to me, and when they tell me about their situation, their families, there's depression, there's anxiety, and then it cripples all parts of their lives. And so what can parents do? And I know I'm not talking about the parents part, but how influential are parents? I've gone into a lot of homes, and every time I've gone into homes, parents always say, okay, there's something going on with my child. So Sue's here, Sue's gonna help us. This is great, Sue, go. And I'm like, okay, tell your child to go upstairs and I'm gonna talk to the both of you, right? And it's because it's the parents. And so what happens in a situation where there is high conflict? And I have one quick story where I came into a family, and the son was 12 years old. At 12 years old, it was so high conflict that the parents were actually physically fighting each other. And when he was 12, I heard that he had to even physically try to separate them. And after that incident, he psychologically paralyzed his whole body. Like, he literally couldn't move for over a year and a half, couldn't even wiggle his toes, nothing. And it was all psychological. And he was diagnosed with conversion disorder, right? And that was because of the home environment. There was nothing physical. 1,000 tests were run. And so when I had a chat with him, 3.5 months working on his mental health, working on the families, by the end of that summer, he was able to at least stand and walk and do things. Right. And so what is that social environment? What is that family environment? And how is that for the children? And also for the parents, for you, for everybody involved who's living in that household? Is it toxic? Is it hostile? And what does that really mean? So for example, let's just say your house is on fire. You can see this, you can smell the fumes, you can see the fire, and you can run. Unfortunately, when parents are arguing and it is toxic, and it is damaging, unfortunately, it's not like fire. Kids can't really see it, but they can feel it. How many times have you gone into a room and it just feels cold? What does that mean? You go into a home and it's cold, or a warm home. It's a social interactions. You can just feel it in the air, right? So children are way more observant, way more smarter than you think. A lot of parents will say, well, they can't really hear us. We're in another room. They can see it, they can feel it. And don't forget, when you communication, about 85-90% is nonverbal. It's the way you say things. It's your body language. It's the way you interact. That's why I find it a bit weird now. I'm only seeing the panelists, only two other faces here. So anyways, and also you have to remember, children have a right. Everybody, and actually not just children, everybody has a right to a safe and supportive environment. And when that environment is not safe, if that environment is not supportive, what are we going to do? What do you expect children to do? And I think it's in the best interest of the children for the parents, right, to ensure that they have this environment. And now think to yourself, when there is a divorce or when there is separation, in your mind, what is your role for your child? And you might be thinking, what do you mean? What's the role of my child? Of course, my child is a child. Actually, think, have they become an advocate? Are they a lawyer? Are they defending you to the other parent? Are they a spy? Are you trying to find out information? Are they a mole trying to find out what's going on with the other partner? Are they the informant? Or are they a messenger? A lot of times I hear, when when children or adults come and talk with me about their parents divorcing, it's always like, oh, my mom said to tell my dad this. Oh, my dad told me to tell. And it's too much. Even for young adults, emerging adults in their 20s, and their parents are doing this, it is crippling for them. Okay. And so, and again, children have the right to be children, not to be your confidant. I mean, children want to please both parents. And my motto has always been, the more people who love your children, the better. The more, the better. Not just the parents, the extended family, the grandparents on both ends. You would think that when there's a union, whether it's married or legally or not, the point is when people come together, wow, lucky kids, doubling up, tripling up, all these people around your children. The more people who can protect them and support them, the better outcomes. And I'm not going to list any outcome that's positive you can think of. That's what happens. That's what they get from everybody. Okay. And so so how do you ensure that children are happy? How do you ensure that children can be successful, however that might be, right? It's when children need sensitive and responsive parents, always. And you might be thinking, oh, that's attachment. That's what attachment means. Parents are sensitive and responsive. What is sense? And those are two separate terms. Sensitive meaning, do they even notice that you're upset or are you happy? It could be positive or negative feelings. Do parents even realize this? Do you even acknowledge the kid in the room? Right? Okay, so you're sensitive, okay? Or your response. So you respond. Say the child is crying or upset. Do you respond? Do you notice? Okay, so you get there. Now you're sensitive enough to know why or how to find out what's going on. Sometimes you can go and respond, but then you just make matters worse, right? Now, what are we going to do? Well, then maybe it would have been better if you just stayed away, right? Just because you're responding doesn't mean you're helpful. And so, do you allow your child to be heard? Especially during these kinds of circumstances, especially when there's a union breakdown between the parents, and then it might escalate to other relationships that are breaking down, right? But for the child, there are ways for these parents. Yes, you might hate each other for whatever reason, but at least try to be amicable in the best interest of the children. You can live separately, fine. You have the right to move out. You have the right to have two separate homes, but you don't have the right to pit the child, right? And so can you do that? Is a child able to express their feelings, positive or not? Are they able to cry? Will you allow them? And also, if they are upset, are you able to, not interrupt? Can they just talk and allow them to express? And then ask more questions. Anything else? What else? Rather than being defensive. Right. Okay. So somebody says hate is too strong of a word. Actually, for some unions, it's actually not that strong. But hopefully, then that's great. If there is a breakdown and you don't hate each other, that's fantastic. But when you get false allegations and whatever, then it can get quite nasty. Okay. And so the point, though, is, how do we de-escalate, ensuring that you still want to separate, and also don't be defensive, right? Because the bottom line, like I said, the more people that's around your child, the better. And so are there ways? So what can you do though? How do you allow your child or create safe spaces? Well, maybe you have a talk with your child and you say, you know what? Let's create some words. And what I like to do when I tell families is, baby panda videos. Baby pandas. As soon as they, a lot of times, like, okay, see, Nicholas, you can't, I don't know if you saw him, he had a little smirk as soon as they said baby panda, like that, as he is laughing now. And I think baby pandas are the cutest animals, right? And as soon as you say that, everybody's like, yeah, oh yeah, okay, right? And what Robert was saying, like distracting, it's good to distract, because if somebody's starting to get angry, if you yell at somebody, say, hey, stop yelling. No, you stop yelling. Nobody's listening to each other and everybody's just yelling. And I tell parents, you know what, calm it down. Okay, if the kid says to you, or they say, you know what, I need a panda time, hey, take it, let's watch a panda video. It kind of helps things calm down. And it's a nice way to say, hey, things are getting kind of hot up there, right? Also, there might be ways, or even having hand gestures or whatever it might be, right? That can just kind of give a sign that won't be rude, that be interpreted as rude. Like, hey, I need some space. Okay, don't talk to me right now. You seem to be a little bit, talk to me maybe in half an hour, but have a rule to come back, right? And also just remember that today is a new day. It is never too late. You can't change the past. And I use this in all the families I go into. Today is a new day. Ask for forgiveness to your children and just say, you know what, I'm going to do better, right? And then since you can't change the past, don't keep on talking about the past. If you keep talking about the past, that means that I'm never going to forgive you and you're going to do it again. Then give no opportunity for people to change, right? And so that's what I would say. So in the best interest of the children, create safe spaces, and hopefully, things will improve moving forward. Everybody has to take their part. Everybody has to do their part to ensure that the children are happy and healthy. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Brian, I don't think I introduced you. I think I was cut off at that point. Just going to do a quick introduction. I think I got cut off after I said your name. So Brian Ludmer is a prominent Toronto family lawyer. He founded LudmerLaw. He is the Canadian Authority on Parental Alienation and is one of the drafters of Bill C-560. Brian, thank you for being here tonight. If you wanted to share.
No, the screen froze again.
No, you're good.
I'm good? Okay. All right, perfect. So first, I would love for every single one of my clients to have heard Robert's speech and Susan's remarks as well. In terms of what advice I would offer people, and of course, a lot of the participants here are already embroiled in the process or have survived the process. We really need to get at people who are still in relationships that are troubled and provide the assistance then. The family law system is built on a commercial litigation model. And that's not the best way. And a lot of people, including judges, recognize that is not the best way to assist families that are already dysfunctional in restructuring in a healthy fashion. And you could argue that the select group of people going through relationship breakdown are already suffering from maladaptive behaviors. They're already not getting along. The cause might be differences in parenting styles, and there may truly be problems there. Quite often the families hang together far too long after the problems become intractable, and the therapeutic assistance and other counseling that might have helped, they don't resort to until it's too late, or until a judge tells them while they're embroiled in this commercial litigation type of system that they would all benefit from counseling. A lot of men have some reticence to proceeding with counseling for various reasons, including thinking that it might not be a male-friendly world, if you will. And so we're taking very difficult situations. We've all heard the phrase that a relationship breakdown is the second most stressful thing you can endure beyond the death of an immediate family member. And things aren't going well. And then we throw you into a system that is a bit of a zero-sum game in terms of the overall family finances and in terms of parenting time with the children. So all of the hurt feelings and fears and primal emotions that people are not dealing with well already are triggered and accentuated by this very difficult, very ponderous, very lengthy, very expensive system that was not designed to help families restructure. It was designed to determine rights and responsibilities as if we were fighting solely over a business deal gone bad. So surviving that, doing well in that, and avoiding the worst parts of the system that we have today requires a great support network, and Robert alluded to that, some significant self-care in advance and during this long, difficult process, also as Robert explained rather, and a much more in-depth understanding of child development and child needs, such as Susan was explaining. And quite often the families are breaking down because the parents aren't getting along about the children. And we don't get training in school about families, about relationships, about conflict resolution, about child development. We really just wing it as parents based on the best that we've seen growing up and from our friends, families, and bits and pieces of knowledge that we picked up along the way. There's actually a science to parenting. And one publication that I have is a bibliography for a parenting library on general topics and specialized topics. And I believe it's posted on my website or my blog, and if anybody contacts me, I'm happy to send it. But when I first started on that journey to look at the science of parenting with a view to helping my clients and originally helping myself, you search online, you go to Amazon, put in the word parenting, and you get 110,000 hits. It's too big, it's not accessible. So over the years, I've kind of curated this and have a very, what I feel the best of the best. Many would be familiar with the book, How to Talk So Children Will Listen, and things of that sort. But there are textbooks from university programs, Parenting, 14th edition. And so you know you're going to get a great overview there of a skill set that you're going to need more than ever while you're going through the family court system. It's going to challenge every aspect of your life, financially, emotionally. You're going to need all the supports that Robert was mentioned, and you're going to have to step up your game in terms of your parenting if you really feel that you can make as good a contribution to the children's upbringing as your former spouse. So you have to actually be able to demonstrate that, to prove that in a system where they're going to be throwing a lot of darts at you because this is what the system incentives. And there are many who are participating here who no doubt have been dealing with false allegations, a system that they perceive as biased, a system that doesn't actually strive to find the good in people, that is just looking for the negatives so that it can assign a primary parent. There's a lot of ways the current system can be improved. And as a co-founder of Lawyers for Shared Parenting and an invited witness to the House of Commons Committee and the Senate Committee that studied the recent Divorce Act changes, I can tell you that a big first step would be a rebuttable presumption of equal parenting in terms of tamping down a lot of the very, very harmful tactics that one sees on the outset of separation. But basically, to survive it, you need a good team, personal support network, family support, friends support. The people who do well actually repartner through the process, and their new partner becomes both their biggest support, but also a validation of them as a person, that someone else wants to step up and devote the healthy years of their life to being with that person, even though the subject matter of the case is they may have been dumped by their former partner. So to be attractive, to find that new partner, to be able to move on with your life, to be able to cope with the system, you have to be at your best at a time when everything you're dealing with is almost designed to have you at your worst. Part of that team has to be good, experienced legal counsel. If you're going to have therapy for the family, it has to be a therapist experienced in these dynamics, who's sensitive to issues like parental alienation, which is not taught in the schools, not even taught in graduate programs. So by having the right sort of team guiding you, you can avoid some of the worst mistakes that parents make born out of just not understanding or reactionary behavior, or just not understanding the calculus that a court is going to bring to bear. I tell some people sometimes that they should view themselves as Alice in Wonderland. And Alice struggled until she learned the rules of Wonderland and played it by its own game. The law of gravity is suspended. What's up is down, what's down is up. And she did well once she acclimatized. And that is how it works with the family court system as well. So a good team, self-care, lots of education, read up on children, read up on parenting, make sure you have a lawyer who is multidisciplinary, who can help you through all aspects of the case and not just silo it and throw you off to somebody else for really the real advice that you need. I do as much quasi-psychology and social work on my files as I do law. That's what the clients need. So in view of our timing, I'll stop there. And because the focus is really how we can get people through this system. And thank you for attending.
Thank you, Brian. So we're about to open up the floor to questions. First off, I wanted to ask a couple questions of our panelists. The questions are kind of focused on one person, but if you have something to say, then you guys can all answer if you feel like. The first one's kind of for Susan and her topic. Given the COVID-19 pandemic, are you seeing there's an increase of children who have mental health problems or have different types of stressors or problems in general based on parenting and because of the pandemic? You're muted.
I don't have the research on, I mean, you hear about it in the media and the research is now going on and now it's being tried to be published, right? So actually I'm an associate editor for one of the journals and there's a lot of articles now that will be published very soon about COVID and parenting. And yes, I mean, we all face it, like it's the social interactions. It's being, placed in a very precarious position, right? And the worries and the stresses, which is real, people dying. And so, yeah, it's been very difficult, especially when there's lockdown. All of a sudden, parents are supposed to take care of their young children, go to work or not work, and those additional stressors. So it is very complicated and has now become even more complicated because of COVID and its uncertainties, right? But hopefully things are going to be moving better because of vaccinations and dealing with the COVID virus. So.
Thank you. Brian, for the most part, I've had some clients tell me, and I guess I've done a little bit of research in the past as well about the difference between the family law system in Quebec and Ontario. I've been told that the system in Quebec seems a little bit more equal to equal parenting if there is a divorce or separation. What do you think Ontario needs to do to make sure that there is an equal inequality between parents if there is a separation?
Sorry, you were cutting out. I assume that's directed at me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I obviously don't practice in Quebec. I've done some strategic advice mandates there. But I do that really across North America and even into Europe. So the paradigm is the same everywhere. It's all of best interest sort of analysis, which is very difficult. It's just a blank sheet and different people have different views. There are lists of different criteria. But what we're seeing in Quebec, from my understanding, and it's been going on for a while, is a bit of a cultural shift where women who feel that they are progressive are actually in favor of and don't look askance at sharing the children equally. They view that as a modern, child-centric thing to do, and they don't fear that they will be looked down on somehow as not measuring up to other women who in other provinces might feel that if you're not made the primary parent, that's a negative comment on you as a mother. So it's more cultural, and particularly in the I guess I'm getting on a bit in years, but in the younger generations, it just seems to be the norm, the expectation, very much like in a couple of the Scandinavian countries. So if the other provinces can start to adopt that, can view men as able to make a substantial contribution to a child's upbringing as women generally, we will see a continuation of the trend, and there's some very good jurisprudence now right across Canada on equal parenting. So it's trending in that direction. There are 2 states in the United States now that have statutory presumptions of equal parenting. They're rebuttable presumptions, as they should be. And then you have Arizona has somewhat of a variation on that. And it's the trend. 20 years from now, it may be absolutely pervasive. But right now, we got to hope that the attitude expressed in the younger people in Quebec, that it's very equal in terms of contribution, equal in terms of what happens after separation. And it's that attitude we need to spread.
Thank you. Nancy, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. It's spelled Szastkiw. You sent in a question. You also have your hand raised. I'll allow you to talk if you want to, and ask a question of our panelists. Sorry, Nancy, your hand disappeared, so I'm just going to ask it quickly. It says, I have known families who have a parent married 2 or 3 times, the second or third step parent who also gets left. Has anyone worked with this population? Is he or she not a biological parent? Are the emotions still the same or legal rights? So they're asking if the legal rights and emotions are still the same. If I guess the step parent gets left with the children, even if there's been multiple marriages.
Okay, sorry if that was directed at me, Nicholas. It was freezing an awful lot.
The question kind of was, if there's a step parent who has been or a parent who has been married multiple times, are there still legal rights for that parent if they get left with a child that is not fair?
Okay, so if I understand the question, it's about what rights a step parent would have after a separation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, being a social parent.
All right. So there is the ability for a non-biological parent to apply for formal rights to parent, if you will. We used to call that access. We don't call that anymore. So anybody could be a grandparent, because we know there's a lot of estranged grandparents out there. Grandparents, an aunt, an uncle, step parent who finds himself kind of drifting on the out after a separation can apply. They can bring their own application for standing and rights and for a parenting plan that gives them a certain footprint in the child's life. And that's almost unlimited in terms of who can apply for that. And it's usually based on the role that you had in the child's life prior to the separation in question.
Thank you. Caleb Adams, I'm going to allow you to talk, and if you can ask your question to anybody, if you want to address someone, or you can just ask it in general, and one of the panelists will answer. You can unmute yourself now, Caleb, I think.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, we can.
Hey, guys. Hey, hallelujah. Thank you. How you doing? Hello?
Great.
Can you hear?
Great. We can hear you. What's your question?
Okay, great. First of all, I want to big up all the fathers out there on the line right now. And thank you, the panelists, for this educational session. I have 4 children from the same mother. I've been through court for 8 years now. I'm 41 years old. My oldest son is 20. My youngest is 9, both sons, and 15 and 12, turning 13. Their mother has been withholding them for a period of time now, like 6 months. And she's done that twice now for my daughters. About parent alienation, I'm not even sure what she's telling them about me, but it's like my daughters are mad at me, like out of nowhere. You know, usually they're happy. You know, we spend our time together and stuff like that. I raised them myself, and then I went to court, and the judge ordered that they go to with her out of nowhere because I don't have enough money. So I just want to know what you have to say about that. When it comes down to parent alienation, and you don't have enough money as a father to hire the best lawyer to win, and it's not about a game either. It's children's life, right? The
Mhm.
Like the Children's Aid Society and the OCL, the Office of the Children's Lawyers, have both sided with me two times now, and the judge still orders that they have new ones coming in because that's what the mom wants, because they don't jive with her. I want to know what you have to say about that.
Okay, so it's very hard, obviously, to comment on individual cases in this forum because generally you'd want to actually read what everybody has written and read the rationales so that you can parse it and give a much more informed
Yeah, as a professional.
answer. The experience generally, you'll see a lot of that. Today's system is still a work in progress when it comes to this sort of dynamic. We have made a tremendous amount of progress. Case I was advising on where the decision came out about a month ago, the judge actually took judicial notice, meaning no proof was required. We all know what it means, of
In what
parental
way?
alienation, and that it's very harmful for children. So that's almost revolutionary in its impact. So
Right.
um,
I'm about
You're
it-
on mute again. Caleb, you're on mute. Unmute. You hit your mute button. Or text it.
Can you hear me now?
yes,
Yeah. Like I'm not, coming against anybody, right? Like it's all for educational purposes. And, I'm a teacher as well, as I'm a health practitioner, like I'm a professional as well. And when it comes down to it, I've just been, it appears that I've been abused by the court system. And I'm so upset about it. But I mean, I've taken my counseling. I'm still going through counseling to better myself as a father. And I'm willing to listen to the voice of my children as well. But when the voice of the children's lawyers and all of them come out with the reports that are siding with me as the father, and the judge just rebukes them over and over and again, it's really concerning. That's like in the child alienation. So I appreciate this panel and discussion. And, I just really wondering what you have to say about that because, like when it comes down to it, these are my kids, right? And so I big up all the fathers and the mothers on the line right now. Keep on going on and pushing forward. And I just want to hear what you have to say on the panel. Thanks. I'm going to mute.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from an anonymous attendee. They ask, what can I do to help make reviewable shared parenting law in Ontario/Canada? Anything planned to put C-560 back on the table? So they're kind of asking what they can do to get involved. Also, if there's any plans for C-560.
okay, well, for those of us who had been involved in, and I was one of the drafters of Bill C-560, it's simply a matter of awareness and lobbying. Everybody should go in to be seeing their own local member of the provincial legislature, their own member of the federal parliament, and making the pitch that the way we are doing family law today is harmful, expensive, seeks to be searching for a primary parent instead of searching for reasons why we should have equal parenting. And it's not evidence-based because the science clearly says that if you're even somewhere near a normal parent, you should have equal parenting. Children do best coming out of a separation that way. So the science is there, but the process is so politicized. When I was in Ottawa testifying before the House of Commons Committee and the Senate Committee, I was shocked at what I was hearing. from certain groups that I won't name. It made no sense. It was, you know, biased and distortions, and yet the science tells us where we need to get to. So if anybody's interested in my remarks, they're posted on my blog, the actual Hansard of the presentation. A whole bunch of organizations spoke about equal parenting. We got 2 conservative members of the House of Commons Committee to move an amendment to bring in a rebuttable presumption of equal parenting, and the Liberals voted it down. So it's a matter of working on every single member of Parliament, and eventually we'll get it over the top because the public opinion polls are strongly in favor.
Thank you. I just wanted to recap. I think I was probably cut off at this point, but during this question time, I just wanted to inform everyone that the panel isn't quite for personal experience in the story. Of course, if you have any questions, you can contact the panel privately, but in the public forum, it's best not to ask such personal questions because it's just not the right format for that. The next question is from Christian. He says, what can you do if your ex-counsel slandered you and alienates you in negotiations? So responding in your own scenarios are only alienates the mothers and harms the children.
Well, you can, you certainly are going to push back. You're going to push back usually in a very positive way. And you're going to ask for supportive behavior. You're going to ask for court orders mandating the supportive behavior. You're going to get the family into an experienced specialist reconciliation therapy program. And where the focus, it's more of a directive process rather than therapy. It's meant to support both parental relationships and any existing court orders. And with a combination of highly specific court orders about parental behavior and the right reconciliation therapist, you should be able to make some good progress there, and or garner the evidence you need to try and convince the court to change the parenting plan. If someone's going to be toxic and pathogenic, meaning invoke pathogenic behavior in the children need to be protected from it. Standard principle of child protection law. Parental alienation is actually a child protection paradigm as opposed to merely a custody and access matter. It is a custody and access matter, but it really belongs in the child protection regime.
So Brent asks, what can be done when one parent is deliberately poisoning a co-parent's environment?
Well, I think I addressed that, and
Yeah.
I'd encourage you, Nicholas, to pick out some questions that Susan and Robert can address, because they had some very important things to say. As I said, I wish all of my clients could hear what they had to say.
I have no problem just listening to you, Brian, because no, because it's to help people, and if they need, I mean, you're a lawyer with a ton of wisdom, so I think it's beneficial for the group. So.
Ken asks, what is happening to address high suicide rates of alienated men?
Okay, I missed just before you said alienated men.
Sorry. It says, what is happening to address high suicide rates in alienated men?
Oh, suicide rates. Okay, well, why doesn't Robert take a shot at that?
The short answer is not a lot, really. Sadly, it's not a public priority in Canadian law. Brian mentioned talking to your members of parliament, and my member of parliament is the Minister of Justice, David Lametti, and I went to see him a couple of years ago and got 30 minutes and talked to him about this, and he just kind of nodded his head and made some bland remarks, and nothing happened afterwards. If you look at Canada's the only G7 country that doesn't have an anti-suicide strategy, which is kind of shocking when you think not only men have high rates, but like Indigenous people in Canada have very high rates, and we see high rates in other groups. So some of us have been calling for a kind of anti-suicide strategy where we can also zero in on, you know, Indigenous people, men, others with high rates, and think about a way of preventing suicide. There have been some efforts recently, so you may be aware of the 911 number, the suicide prevention campaign led by Todd Doherty MP, who is been trying to get a centralized number that everybody can call who is in a suicidal crisis, and will get through to the appropriate counselor and support. That's obviously a good initiative, and it's what we do know in suicide is that suicide is never really caused by a single factor. Some people have elevated rates, so the fact that it's multifactorial means that the response should be also be multi-pronged. We need better mental health services for men per se. We know that men typically find the way that mental health services are configured unattractive currently. We know that there are different modalities of healing, and that a lot of men prefer kind of action-based modalities of healing, or group-based or activity-based, rather than kind of one-on-one talk therapy. So we definitely need more choice in the mental health system. So there's these things in British Columbia, they're very popular, called men sheds, where like they're kind of like youth clubs for older men, where men can go and kind of make things and do things and do stuff together, do woodwork and metalwork. A lot of evidence shows they can be very helpful for men who are kind of isolated and lonely. So we need like a multi-pronged approach. We need a kind of strategy. We need to think about mental health services. We need to think about the non-profit sector, because the third sector, they can do a lot of good things to help men. We need to think about religion, spirituality, organizations and congregations. They often have a lot of energy and a lot of goodwill to help. We need to think about schools, employers. There's a lot of stigma in workplaces. So, you know, I talk to men regularly who work, say, in the police or in the army, in these kind of places, and that you would never talk about a mental health issue because you'll be overlooked for promotion, and you'll be engaging in professional stagnation if that happens. So, like I say, a multi-pronged approach, and sadly, it's not a public priority. But I see Susan has her hand up, so I'll.
I think that it is true. There's not a lot of attention on intimate partner violence against men. I mean, and also that, which leads to alienated fathers who get alienated from their children, who then, you know, go down the road of perhaps to the end of suicide. And I think that that's why my research has shifted into this area. I think that this organization, CCMF, is now building, and you're hearing, I'm hearing about new center organizations opening up across Canada. And I think that, I mean, it's slow process, but I think that if researchers, communities can come together and bring greater awareness, you know, to men and their experiences. And so my colleagues and I across Canada, we actually in the last few months, we've been working together to try to do the first conference that will be occurring next year on men and families, where the whole conference will be on men, violence against men, you know, false allegations, intimate partner violence. We want to raise awareness. And currently we have 12 countries involved, right? And we're trying to build that kind of momentum to say, listen, men are suffering. And it's not just men. It's also if men are alienated, and usually it's from their parent, from their children, their family side too is also alienated. And I'm also working with a group on alienated grandparents, And we just launched a survey on that as well. So I think, I mean, the work is slow, the research is slow, but I think that I'm meeting now with lots of researchers, and the political climate now seems to be moving toward having some appetite to listen to violence against men. So we're trying, and I'm open to any suggestions of how do we get the word out? How do we reach the men? You know, who tend to, what Robert was saying, they tend to have smaller support groups. There's the shame, the stigma. But then how do we reach them? How do we bring them in to say, you know what, let's talk, and what can we do? What can we do to help you? Is it to help you in documentation? Like that's what I'm doing with some fathers now. What does it mean? You know, and so it'll take time.
Thank you. Matthew Wong, I'm going to invite you to talk. You have a question. You just have to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yep,
Hi.
you can-
Hi. Okay, great. I'll make this as short and concise as possible. In the interest of time, thank you very much for taking my question. So it's kind of a two-part question, really, because one, I'd like to know how to find a therapist specialized in alienation when you really don't have any money, and the free therapists are very much, as was aptly put before in the presentations, they can be very lacking because there's no education in it. And as I've seen a couple companies or therapists that I did find in the Hamilton or Guelph region, they wanted a $6,000 deposit, which is just incredible. So how do you find one when you don't have any money in that respect? And then how do you address, or I don't know who could address this one, of how to address the alienation syndrome or atmosphere when you're dealing with older children? For instance, you know, with a 15-year-old who is confused, but still refuses to visit one party. And that's part of the alienation aspect of it. And the other party, the wife refuses to, quote unquote, force the child, but the child, because the child is 15, but it's like there's still years there that are being missed out on because of the recent separation. So that's kind of a two-parter aspect of it. And the child does not want therapy or counseling.
Okay, let me jump in there. First, on the latter part, there is no age other than 18 where the legal system is not allowed to fully respond if it cares to do so. And there is no age at which we should ever be giving up on a child. Children are supposed to come out of childhood with bonded relationships with both parents that are solid enough to last a lifetime.
I totally agree.
Young adults are very, very busy. So we rely on the bonds of affection and attachment that are built during childhood when children experience our caregiving. And so it is a failure to just give up. And when judges make statements that, well, I'm sorry we couldn't do anything, but I'm sure they'll reconnect with you in time, that's simply an aspirational statement that is just not backed up by evidence. So nothing turns on the fact that it's a 15-year-old child. Everything turns on the fact that the child doesn't have a healthy relationship with both parents, which is extremely concerning, will necessarily lead to future mental health problems and burdens on society, and not optimize social capital, if you will, and needs to be tackled urgently. So that understanding, certain judges get it. Most judges would tend to give up at 16 and a half to 17, just on the assumption that whatever remedy they come up with, the child could abandon at 18. And right or wrong, the decision to give up is wrong. While you still have authority over the child, you keep trying. So that's the first part. In terms of experienced reconciliation therapists who know what they're doing, because the ones who don't know what they're doing, it's not just that they're going to be ineffective, they're actually going to cause harm. They're going to make
Right.
it worse. Each failed therapeutic attempt makes the next attempt with some other mental health practitioner way more difficult.
Right.
And there are a lot out there, very expensive, top of their field supposedly, who really don't know what they're doing in this very difficult area.
Right.
So I guess my advice would be the right reconciliation therapist with the right sort of court mandate empowering them over the family system is worth more than having a lawyer on your team. So I would devote whatever resources are there to finding the right person, making sure that the authorizing court order empowers them to write reports for the court, that they can force everybody into cooperative behavior, etc. That's where you spend your money rather than in the legal process. And an experienced lawyer who understands PA can direct you to who those practitioners are and also help you draft the sort of court order for their services that is going to empower them and force the reluctant parties, the favored parent and the children, to actually engage with a view to solutions instead of just justifying their position.
And I would just like to add, Matthew, that you said that looking for a therapist, right, is difficult, especially pro bono. I would suggest, and especially with this uniqueness, right, the parental alienation in your situation, I would actually, when you said that, I was thinking of, again, CCMF. I would look to men's organizations because a lot of their clients are going through this. So you just said in the Guelph, wherever, I have no sense of direction. But anyways, I know, like with Bijan Rafi, he is the executive director for the CCMF in York region, and they had received a grant to provide free services for his area. Right. So there may be other organizations like that in your area, but you can reach out to him, and see if he knows of somebody. Right. Because
What's his name?
Rafi, Rafi. His first name is Bijan, Bijan. He is a CCMF York region. If you send me an email, I can connect you with him. And he just recently got a grant, maybe like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago or something, or 3 months ago. And it was to get the money because there's a lot of men now, like you or others who are in courts. They don't have the resources because they're spending it for a criminal lawyer, a family lawyer, and then they have no money, but they need therapy, and and so they may have some resources this way.
And I'm in a rural area. I'm way outside the Toronto area, and that's why that is even just more difficult.
Yeah, so what I mean is, but everything's on Zoom now, you know what I mean? So now technology, who cares where you are, right? But I'm just saying, like the men's organizations also, you may want to reach out, out there that might, because they would know this kind of uniqueness. They may have resources and people, because it's all about connections. But if
right, and
I'll connect you with him, and he might know people.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. And that's how I came to this presentation, which is fantastic. And I really feel for all the other parents out there that are in the same situation. Everybody hang in there as well. And I thank you all. If anybody else has anything on that subject or not, that's fine. And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Roman Gomez, I'm gonna enable you to talk and just unmute yourself, and you can address one of your questions to the panelists.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. So listening to Brian, I recently completed the divorce process, and I have to say that Brian's completely right. I had moved my parents up to Canada to help me during the process. I'm a former teacher, former guidance counselor, and still my lawyer told me it would still be a shot in the dark if I was able to get shared custody for my kids. So that was the first time I didn't think, even with all my professional background, that my lawyer would tell me that I was still climbing a mountain. So that's definitely been something on my mind. And the question to the panelists is, having gone through that and come out on the other side with getting shared parenting, shared physical custody, I want to do more to help other people. So how does someone like myself, with the passion that I now have for helping other fathers, get involved on a professional level or even a non-professional level? I've thought about divorce coaches. I've thought about meetup groups. I've actually started to get involved in church groups to help fathers who are kind of going through these situations. So how does someone coming out of a situation and coming out on the other side do more to help those in need?
That Ramon, that would be great if you send me an email. I can connect you again with Bijan. And so, because they are actually looking for volunteers and for people to help, so that would be fantastic.
Awesome, thank you.
We can have a conversation.
I would say the Canadian Centre for Men and Families, there's one in Toronto, one in Ottawa, one in Vancouver, that they would really appreciate volunteers. And I'm not sure where you said you were, Ramon, but even like online help, I'm sure would be helpful. Virtual support, there's things you can do. I think you're doing the right things in churches and stuff where there's,
yeah, or any other men's organizations, I mean, because this is a new area, and men haven't really been given that attention. So it's great to kind of pool the resources and to help others. That's fantastic.
Okay, thank you everyone for attending this webinar tonight. I wanted to again thank you, the panelists, for all of their time and reading tonight. I also wanted to thank again Canada Life for making this webinar possible and for enabling us to talk about different issues that aren't usually talked about. In the chat, I have posted a little donation link. Things like this do cost money, and if you want to see more content, more professionals in the field of mental health and mental studies and all these aspects, if you want more, then consider donating, and we can continue to offer these services. Thank you, everybody, and please have a great night.